Here we go, Iraq. Coming right back at you, literally. Obama notified Congress, according to the Associated Press, that up to 275 troops would be sent to Iraq to provide support and security for U.S. personnel in the American embassy in Baghdad. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Now look, it's just for the American embassy for now, theoretically, but that's also how Vietnam started. In this case, Iraq would be restarting. And by the way, it's not just quite for the embassy. There are other possibilities here. Let's tell you about that. Separately, 3 U.S. officials said the White House was considering sending a contingent of Special Forces soldiers to Iraq. Their limited mission, which has not yet been approved, would focus on training and advising beleaguered Iraqi troops, many of whom had fled their posts across the nation's north and west as the al-Qaeda-inspired insurgency has advanced in the worst threat to the country since American troops left 2011. Okay, so if you read anything about history, you know this is exactly how wars began. Oh, we just sent some advisors. I mean, they were special forces, but they were only doing training. Well, some of them got hurt. We got them, and then we had to fire some rockets. But then some rockets were fired back at our ships. Well, now we got to go. I mean, we can't back down. We're America, right? We can't have those guys firing rockets at us. And they killed some of our soldiers. We got to go to war. We got to go to war. What can we do? You're going to let those guys die in vain? Is that what you're going to do? I've seen this movie before, unfortunately, dozens of times, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to train more Iraqis? Let me tell you 2 problems with that. Number one, we already spent at least $20 billion training Iraqis. Apparently, they're untrainable, okay? I don't mean Iraqis overall. Look, the Sunni Iraqis are unbelievable. The 800 guys took over Mosul against an army of 30,000. You want to go challenge the Kurdish Peshmerga? Good luck to you. They're perfectly trainable. And the Shia in the south, well, they got their Mahdi army, etc. It's not that they're not trainable. Of course, they're like all other human beings. Obviously, of course, right? But it's that the Iraqi army is untrainable because they don't give a damn about a thing called Iraq. Because they don't care about fellow Iraqis who happen to be Sunnis or Kurds. In this case, the majority is the Shia, and they just want Iraq for just Shias. So that army, if they're Sunni, they're not going to fight other Sunnis. And if they're Shia, they're like, who cares about the Sunni territory? If somebody else wants to take that, I'm not going to die for it. You come to Basra, which is Shia territory, and I'll behead you, right? So this trying to keep the Iraqi army together, we're going to spend more money and more American lives trying to do that? Are you insane? And then, by the way, if you do train them, they're Shias who are, as we're about to show you, totally in a working relationship with Iran. And then Iran can take that training and use it against us in Syria. Wow, lovely, great idea. Way to get more intermeshed in Middle Eastern violence. That's a super good idea. Spokeswoman Caitlin Hayden said that while Obama would not send troops back into combat, he has asked his national security team to prepare a range of other options that could help support Iraqi security forces. No, they're not in combat. They're right behind them. They're with the Iraqi security forces. Oh, damn it, they got fired on. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Now, here we go again. You think they're not going to go back in if we get fired on and we lose a bunch of soldiers? Okay. Now we go to the head of the Quds Force. That's General Qasem Soleimani. The Quds Force is the elite Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They're showing up to fight the Sunnis because Iran, Shia, the government of Iraq now Shia, thanks to our invasion. Another brilliant move. So Iraqi security officials said that the U.S. government was notified in advance of the visit by Soleimani, whose forces are a secretive branch of Iran's Revolutionary Guard that in the past has organized Shiite militias to target U.S. troops in Iraq, and more recently was involved in helping Syria's President Bashar Assad in fighting against Sunni rebels. Great, let's train those guys. This is a nightmare of a movie, man. Why do we want to relive this? I don't want to go to that movie again. And then the Associated Press, man, they drive me crazy with he said, she said. In the middle of their article on this, just to have balance, or maybe because they believe it, they say, Republicans have been blaming Obama for the loss of a decade's worth of gains in Iraq. Oh, what did we get in Iraq? What decade's worth of gains? How do you legitimize that by even putting it in the article? And the Republicans say that Obama killed the 7 dragons that were in Iraq. There were no dragons in Iraq. We had no gains in Iraq. What gains? If someone could name a single gain out of Iraq, then you print that in your article. There were no gains in a decade of losses in Iraq. Jesus, man. Okay, so now we turn to these same guys, both the insurgents and the atrocities they're doing. And then remember, those insurgents in Iraq are also fighting in Syria, and the atrocities of the Syrian government. Now let's see if it makes sense to get into the middle of this mess. Well, international law expert here says that about the ISIS, that's the Sunni insurgents in Iraq that's causing all that trouble, and they're the same guys in Syria. Now Syria is very complicated, there's a lot of different sides, but they're one of the principal groups fighting against the government there. They say we are possibly on the cusp of a regional war, and that is something we're very concerned about. Okay, great. This sounds so good. Boy, wouldn't it be great if American troops were in the middle of that? And then UN human rights investigators say that a regional war in the Middle East draws ever closer. Events in neighboring Iraq will have violent repercussions for Syria. Great. By the way, which side are we on in Syria? We're against Assad. He's with the Shia. He's with Iran and kind of Iraq. Okay. But we're also on Iraq's side, who's also on Iran's side, and we're also against the rebels fighting in Syria. You want to get in the middle of that? Have you lost your mind? And by the way, remember, Barack Obama, one of his big bragging points is, I got us out of Iraq. But you know what's going to be one of his bragging points soon? I got us out of Iraq and then back into Iraq. I should get credit for both. Historic change. Obama's all about change. Okay? Now, they also say, according to Reuters, that these investigators at the UN have documented war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by all sides. Oh, great. Okay. Investigators further say about the rebels, growing numbers of radical fighters are targeting not only Sunni Muslim communities through their Sharia law and real Sharia law, extreme Sharia law there, under their control, but also minority communities, including the Shiites, Alawites, Christians, Armenians, Jews, and Kurds. So they're all in trouble, okay? Now we go to the Syrian government. Maybe we should back them, right? I mean, God, it seems like they're fighting against this ISIS, who we now sent troops in to possibly fight against and certainly train against, right? So how about the Syrian government? Syria's government had regained strategic terrain in Damascus and Aleppo provinces through a mix of brutal tactics with long-lasting sieges marked by barrel bombing. I'm not even sure I know what barrel bombing is, but it doesn't sound good. And here's some descriptions. Victims describe the agony of being encircled, shelled, and bombarded while slowly starving. Okay, yes, let's go into the middle of that. That sounds great. And one last one from the Brazilian chief investigator. Many are emaciated. Almost all bear marks of horrific abuse, including strangulation, mutilation, open wounds, burns, and bruising. Now that's the Syrian government. And then we told you about the live tweeting of the amputations by the people fighting the Syrian government. And then there's the Iranian government that has the nuclear program that we hate most of all, that is also fighting against the rebels who are the Sunnis who are doing the amputations. Would you send your son or daughter into the middle of that? And to do what? To get another decade's worth of gains? What in the world are we going to do in the middle of that mess? Here's what I'd be doing right now. Hey, anybody got a helicopter? Let's land it on that rooftop in Baghdad and get the fuck out of there.